to speak to us today. David, would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, I'm David Truesdale. I'm the grandson of Archie and Jean Leishman, who stayed in Whitelaw Terrace. Mum and Dad were Wally Truesdale, but he was named as Bill, and my mother was Margaret Leishman. Both of them were married in the parish church just over by there, 24th of July 1946, and then after that my dad was sent away, so he was went over to Palestine, so they hadn't much time together. And photographs from my mum and dad too were few and far between when it was the marriage. Because nobody had cameras, and because there was a war on, and it was Mr. Melrose, I think the minister was at the time, and his wife took one picture of them, and would you believe that one picture didn't come out right? Half it was dull and half it was brighter. But they had a Guard of Honour, which was the Boys Brigade, and the Gildry, which my mother was a leader in. So that's the kind of a starting point of where everything all came from for me.
So did you spend a lot of time in Twechar when you were a child?
Oh yeah, lots of times. It was a Saturday in fact. It was a walk in the Galville Road, down past all the pugs down the old railway, and we used to always meet one, and obviously my mum being Twechar knew who they were. But the fun part was they always blew out steam for the train, and when we were there we thought this was fantastic because there was three of us. There was myself, and there was Archie, and there was Richard. Richard was a baby in the pram, but we thought this was great, and we walked in and up to my grandfather's Whitelaw Terrace, and it was always an adventure because he was always something in the go. He was always telling you a story, and it was a good day. He would take you out a walk, go around some of his old pals, or he would take you up to his hut, which was really in Aladdin's cave. He had two huts. One was a wee joiner shop, which he'd sharpened all the saws for people, but he had this big black hut, and everything was stored in it, but you weren't allowed into it. But you were lucky sometimes if the door was open, you sneaked in, and all his old stuff was in it. Gas masks was in it. His army helmet was in it, and there was an old clock he used to be sitting in. I used to always hit it with a hammer to get it to ring because there was no key for it. And old skates, ice skates were in it, the ones that you clipped onto your shoes and everything. And I always remember being younger, I always wanted to try this gas mask on, and I was told never to touch it, but I did touch it this day. And when I came back into the house, they told me that I had been wearing it, and I said, why is that? Because the dust off it was all over my face, so I got caught out that day. But Papa was a great man for telling stories, and he always made things. He had a hoopla game that he had old washers and a peg that he made up, and all the kids played with it down the Siemens down the stairs. They were had two young kids, and we played there. And then he would take us a walk away down by the Shirvey Glen, and he would show us all the trees and everything there. We would meet different people and great stories. And he always smoked his pipe, and he was a wee baldy-headed man, and he always told us a story that it was the wee spiogs that jumped out the hedge and took all his hair away. And we believed it because we were so young. And then, as I say, he would go and see his brother Alec, and he was another character too. Alec, in his later years, moved over to Alexander Avenue to the old folks' houses. And when if he took no well, my grandfather always took us over to see him. But he was like wee Willie Winky. He had a big gunny on, and he had one of these wee fancy hats with a big pom-pom on the end of it all. And I could never keep a straight face when I was in the place, so that was Alec. But no, I had a great childhood going out around Twechar, and my grandmother had something for us, and we always had to, my mother in fact had to And the road up to the house had to go into Hammy's shop and we had to buy ice cream because she loved ice cream. And she always had fairy cakes made, and this was her favourite. A slice of ice cream and a fairy cake. And that's what we got when we were there, so we're that. And then my other granny, strangely enough, was over the fence from them. That was my granny Kelly. Well, she was a Truesdale to start with, and she remarried a Kelly. But again, that was another adventure, because when you went and seen her, she trailed you out a walk, but you never know where you're going to end up, because she never burnt coal. You were taken away up the woods. In fact, the woods just up there where the old roads used to be, you were trailed away up there, and you'd be hauling by branches and twigs and all sorts of things. And she set a chimney on fire to clean it.
Why did she not burn coal?
That we never knew. I think it was just she was that used to it when she came from Ireland before that, and I think they had a farm, and I think this is one of the reasons why she just kept the old thing going, because it was a big range, a big black range she had in the house, and the sticks were always piled up at the side, and these logs, and she was always had something in the go. She was making scones all the time. It was more or less soda scones you got. So you went over the fence, you get soda scones, and if the other side of the fence you were getting fairy cakes and all this kind of home baking stuff. But no, we have thoroughly enjoyed it. And then if we didn't go out on a Saturday to Twechar, we ended up on a Sunday. Now my Uncle John, that's John Leishman, my mum's brother, he had 3 sons, so that would be 6s. And grandmother, when we were going out the door, she had lined us all up on our ages. Now I was the oldest, and then it went right down. And as we were going out the door, we had to give her a kiss in the cheek, and we were given a 5 boys and a silver sixpence on the road out. So this is what we were all given. But she had a mole on the side of her face, and it was as jaggy as anything, and we all tried to get out the road yet, but no, it never failed, but we got there. But that was basically my childhood coming out to Twechar. It was excitement, you never knew what was happening.
Would you like to tell us about your connection with the Duberdoos?
Well, my grandmother, she was Jean Duberdeau, and it was basically when we traced the family tree back, and the family tree started off in France, and I am the 13th generation of the governor of Bergerac in France. Now, it was at the time of the French Revolution when all the gentry were getting their heads chopped off, and their generation, or the bloodline, managed to escape. And it was a woman who was dressed up as an old woman with rags, and they thought it was rags that was in the back of her, or in a shawl, but here it was a baby. And this was the bloodline escaping from France, and they escaped to Scotland, and they landed down in Ayrshire, where they had ended up a farm. Now this is where my grandmother, she came from, was in Ayrshire. But there was an American minister who has written a book, and it's called Baby on Her Back by the Reverend John Duberdeau, and it gives you the whole history of the Duberdeau family from the start of it, which was the governor of Bergerac, ministers, lawyers, all that kind of stuff, right through all ages, and we ended up painters, mechanics, drivers and everything. But every generation has been logged right through, and it's in this book of the Baby on Her Back. And it's really interesting. Because this minister went into it in a big way over in France, and he traced all the Duberdeaus right through, and there was some good times, and there was some really kind of rebellious areas. But published it, and it makes very interesting reading. So my mother, she'd done all the looking into the history for the Duberdoos in Scotland, and this is how she managed to get everything back again. And he done all the American one, but it's surprising just how far wide the Duberdoos are. But my great grandfather, he had the farm, and this is where the Scottish line started from, down in Ayrshire.
Your Grandma Kelly, she'd quite a history as well, hadn't
Oh, jeez, aye, grandmother, she came from over in Castlewellan, over in Ireland, and they had a farm. And my grandfather was actually killed as a result of an accident. He sent a young chap up a tree, and he was asked to cut this branch off when the young fellow cut the wrong side of it, and my grandfather got impaled, and they died as a result of it. But by this time my grandmother had my dad and my aunt Louise. She eventually ended up in Canada, but she felt it wasn't a place to bring up two young children, because where they were, there was a lot of troubles, and it was where the first lot of troubles came, and they were getting a lot of meetings, and there was a lot of carrying on and shootings and such like. And it wasn't till one of our relatives, there was a gun pulled on them at Derry's walls, and my grandmother decided then this was not a place for young children. So she decided to sell up. But as life has it, it was actually made out that the farm had not to leave the Truesdale side of it. But my grandmother, had to go to the land registry and change all this, because she was selling it. Don't know if it would have caused too much problems nowadays, but I think then it did cause a lot of hassle. And after that, she sold that. She met a chap, Joe Kelly, who was a miner, and he had connections in Twechar. And this is how my grandmother ended up in Twechar. But she wasn't lucky with that send either. She hadn't Joe too long, and he passed away as well. So she told me, she says, I'm no lucky with men, I'm not having any more. She says, two's enough. So she ended up in the Ross, and she was up the stairs, the block just across to the Bully. And what she done was, she got a bit of ground down where the old bridge, where the railway bridge is, and she had hens. So she started having the hens and all that, and she had her big bag of wheat in behind the back of the door. But that created problems for her as well, with mice. And you could be sitting talking to her and you'd hear all the mice traps going off. This was the mice running about the house. But she had the big black range also over there. But she, again, just took it as being farm life. She didn't modernise in any way. She had the big wooden table in the house, she had the big chairs, but her speciality after the scones was dumpling, the big clouty dumpling that used to get dried, I suppose, at the fire. Well, one of the times we went out there, and she always put sixpences or something into it, the silver company bit. And we were always eager to try and get a piece of this garment, but this day my dad had slipped a 2 and 6 was a half crown, an old half crown, out his pocket, and he kidded on he was choking in it, and he spun out with this half crown in his hand. We thought, yeah, there's half crowns in this now. Well, we made ourselves sick eating that much dumpling, thinking we'd get it. My mother gave my dad a row, so it never happened again because we were no well after that. But Granny always treated us as if we were just at another adventure playground. But one thing about my grandmother, Grandma Kelly, was at Christmas, she was a great knitter with either socks or gloves. Now, where she got the wool from, don't ask me, but you could get a surprise at Christmas. You'd get a pair of knitted gloves, and it would have a pink finger, a black finger, a white finger, a red one, green, but they never matched. Both sides were different. Or a pair of socks. Maybe they're modern now, certainly, because the heel would be red and the toe would maybe be blue. So, but that was her.
Would you like to tell us about the Ulster Covenant and the signatures?
Oh, right. That was again, back to where all the trouble started. And it was the Ulster Covenant came up, and it was the fact is that they wanted the two Irelands to be joined, and my grandfather especially, and my great-grandfather, Robert Truesdale, they were up against it all. So there was a kind of a census that everybody was wanting to defend Northern Ireland, but that to sign up, that they would put their life on the line. So they signed all this up, and I've got copies of all the signatures and of the covenant that they would actually put their life in the line to keep Ireland free from what they wanted. And it's interesting because it's still, to this day, it's still history. But my grandmother, she was a Hayes to her own, and I managed to trace back that the Hayes signed up to this as well. So there was this, it was quite a thing for it to be over these days. But the strange thing was when they signed up for it, a lot of them couldn't read or write, and the spellings all came wrong as well. But no, it was something that, you know, it's part of history over there too, in their name. Dear knows what would have happened if they had to take up arms in the way that they said they would take it up. But it was interesting, but they never spoke in great detail. It was there, the signatures were there, and that's what they had done.
So, when you look back, is there any particular memory of Twechar that stands out?
Well, really all the things that, when you look at it in history, back to the Ireland part, my grandmother had the farm. I've got the bill of sale. When she was in Ireland, for some reason, when my grandfather died, she bought 2 graves. Now, nobody knows to this day why she bought 2 graves, because they were in the graveyard at Castlewellan. 155 and 156 was the 2 numbers. My grandfather was buried in 155. 156, she held on to it and then sold it. Now, whether she was a businesswoman in that, I don't know. But at the funeral, she hired her gloves, she hired a black scarf. Everything was hired the day of my grandfather's funeral. She hadn't bought anything. But I've got all the, as I say, I've got all the land register stuff connected to the farm. All the history attached to the family over there, it's amazing, because my grandmother worked in, they called the big house, which was over at the castle in Castlewellan. And we've got a few pictures of her with the big long aprons, and they called it, she was in service. And this was a done thing. But from the Hayes side too, of my grandmother, I've got a bit of history attached to that too. But the problem with over in Ireland trying to trace it is a lot of the history was lost when the records were burnt in Dublin. This is where they were registered, and the fact is that a lot of it's held now by parishes, and it costs quite a bit of money. So that part of it kind of has melted away a wee bit. But my young thing, thinking about all the different things that happened, I wonder what nowadays kids nowadays going to look back for adventures, because my adventure was all outside and it was all made up, and we were always something. I mean, my grandfather was a great person again for good, as I said earlier, going out walks. And I told you the day I was out speaking about his tobacco. My grandmother would only buy him an ounce of tobacco, and this always sticks in my mind. And it was a cooperative van that used to come up and stop in Whitelaw Terrace. Now she would go out and she would buy him either an ounce of Condor bar, Condor slice or Warhorse, and that had to do him the full week. Now my grandfather loved his pipe and it was never out. But what we used to do was, if he was getting close to getting no having any, we'd take a walk down the Galway Road, and he would pick these big leaves, you see them growing at the side of the burn. Now, they get called colt's foot, but my grandfather called them dishy logie. Now, why he gave them that name, I don't know. But he used to gather it all together and would come up the road with it, and he would tie it up and hang it up in his hut and dry it out just like tobacco. Well, yeah, he knew when he was short, because you would just be coming up the steps into Whitelaw Terrace, and if he was smoking this stuff, oh my goodness, the smell. He used to crunch it all up and just put it into a jar and fill his pipe up with 2 puffs and it was away. But what fascinated me was with him with his pipe. He'd be sitting at the fire and he'd go into his pocket and bring out a bit of newspaper, tear it into a strip, make a spill, light it at the fire, and this flame would be. And he would be lighting his pipe with it, get it in his hand, then throw it out. And he always had a wee lid. And the lids eventually became scarce. So he started making these lids out of iron brew bottle tops and punching wee holes, and this was it. And he was always, never without his pipe, always had his pipe. Didn't matter where he was, this pipe was always. And that is one of my favourite memories, his pipe, because he always liked an old clay pipe, and there was only one place I used to be able to buy them for him. And got them every now and again, and it would be, maybe I spoke about this, stem about this length, and he'd be, oh, it's a lovely cool smoke. Maybe about 3 or 4 weeks later, you'd come in, and the shank's only about this, and he's, oh, it's still a good smoke, you know, but that's all the memories. But aye, good childhood out there.
Well, thanks very much for taking the time and coming here.
My
and
pleasure.
sharing your memories with us, David. Thanks.
Maybe forgotten some of the stuff, that's the only thing.
Take me home where the wind is warm and the skies are clear for you. Take